Hello everyone, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to the SpeedCreep YouTube channel. I appreciate you joining me today. As you read in the title, I am going to be putting the body on this 1972 Chevelle, hopefully on the chassis in this video. But there's a few things in the way of putting that body on the chassis. One, and the main thing, is this brand new 6-speed that I got. The 6-speed is coupled to a 5.7 liter tuned port injected straight out of a Corvette. That is out of an 89. I robbed that entire powertrain to put in this Chevelle in hopes that I can make a fun family cruiser that will still get somewhat decent fuel mileage, would be fun to rip around town as well. So if you haven't seen videos on this before, there's a ton. There'll be a playlist at the end of this video. You can click on it and see all the body work I did. You can see all the chassis work I did, the BMR 2-inch drop suspension, the brake lines, everything's in those playlists. So check it out if you want to. I appreciate it. That's what we're going to do today. Finally unwrapping this Chevelle that I've been trying to keep most of the rust dust out of while I was redoing the frame. So first thing I need to do is get this frame out of the way and pull the body back over here and pull it off the rotisserie. I got to hang the body from the ceiling so that I can slide the chassis underneath and kind of slowly ingress that body onto, if that's the right word, get the body onto the chassis slowly so that I can get the tunnel cut out as precise as I can so that it still looks good and functions good and I can seal it up well for that 6-speed. Hopefully I don't have to do too much cutting, but I have a feeling there's going to be some butchering, and I just put those floor pans in. So, all right, stay tuned. Thanks for joining me. Please subscribe if you like this kind of content, and hopefully I'll get some more stuff for you that you also like. All right. Sorry everyone, the camera died the other day, so you lost the last little bit of it, but it was the same idea. Body on and off, cutting, body on and off, cutting. So I was trying to sneak up on it. I don't know the right way to do it because I've never made a transmission tunnel before or fitted a 6-speed, so I'm just kind of stabbing at this thing the best way I know how. My idea was I would just slowly make relief cuts, and then that way I could open it up kind of like a tuna can. And I probably won't keep a lot of the original metal. I'll probably make new, but I wanted to at least have that as a guide of how far out and how far up. I don't know. Might be right, might be wrong, who knows. There's probably no right way, but this is how I was doing it. So I made a little bit more cuts after the camera died, and I got the car sitting on the chassis. My body mounts didn't show up in time, so I did use body mounts. I just reused the old ones. So I've got basically the right spacing, and those are probably compressed a little bit, so the new ones will be stiff and higher. So if I make it fit now, I'll have probably an extra 1/4 of an inch once I put the new body bushings on. But that's what I ended up with. Hopefully I put in that little short vertical video right as I got it done. Hell yeah. Showing my excitement, shifting through the gears. First time I actually sat in the car. So let's do a second time reenactment of me sitting in the car. Side note, the bushings did finally come in, along with some ARP hardware for the headers and the engine bolts. So this is what I ended up with, for now anyway. If you sit in here, I'm going to guess this is roughly where the bench seat would be. I was worried about that slave cylinder, and it's going to be close, but I mean, I think it'll be fine. The throttle pedal goes right there. So like I said, it'll be tight. Worst case scenario, I'll trim a little bit of that corner off if it hangs up on the carpet. If it hangs up on the carpet or something, I'll do that. But this is what I meant by leaving some of that metal. I made relief cuts as I went and bent this stuff out and up. So now I kind of have an idea of where this thing needs to be. On this side, I was able to keep a lot of the factory metal. I just put a relief cut up here at the top and lifted it. Hopefully you can see it. I made this where I could lift it. So I've lifted it up and then kind of rebent it over just on the top and then kicked it down. So now this is ready to be tacked in right there. So I got that side straight. This side had the most cutting. One, because of this little doodad here. I still need to look up and see what that is because it's got a wire hanging off of it, but the wire is not connected to anything. Probably would have saved me a lot of time if I could just take that out, but I don't know if I can, and I needed to do the trimming for the slave cylinder anyway, so whatever. But this whole side, I'm going to basically, this piece used to be over here, so I've trimmed it up. I'm going to come up vertical to the top of this, and then I'm going to use my planation hammer and make a nice curved edge because I also have a sensor here, and the factory metal wouldn't have allowed me to put that sensor in. So that sensor needs a little bit of clearance anyway, so I'll put a nice gradual curve and then weld it in, and I'll basically make from here forward patch panel, probably make it in a couple pieces, but that will all be stationary welded in. And then back here I was thinking making this panel separate, and if I can make this panel separate, I know I talked about having the transmission bolts be able to come in and out, but once you put a wrench in there, it's really tough. So if I can engineer it this way, I can make this second panel kind of like a old square body where it bolts in, and then between the bolted flange, I can weld nuts on the back, screw it in, I can put in a sealant. around the edge. So if I ever needed to take the transmission apart and I needed access to this, I could just unbolt this panel, break it loose from the sealant, and then I'd have access basically like it is right now. I'd be able to take these bolts out directly from the top, which would be a lot easier, and I could access the shifter if I needed to do any maintenance or something. I'm not sure what kind of maintenance this thing requires. So just trying to think ahead a little bit, but this is what I've got. It's opened up. It's there. Looking at the alignment for the seats, it's going to be a tight fit. I think if I put a bench seat in here, I'm going to have to do some serious clearance work on the bench seat. And even if I did a bucket seat, I feel like that bucket seat's going to be really close to second gear. So maybe figure out how I can cut this off and kind of put a bend on it. Only problem is this little rod in here has got a little clip that I believe that's the reverse. You have to pull it to go into reverse. So I'd have to figure out how to get that to work as well. But that's a problem for a later day, because I'll sit on a milk crate and drive this thing. I don't care. But I'm calling it a wrap for today. This is where I've got it. I think I've got it in a way that I can start making the panel and then just tack it in. And that way, if that whole panel looks good, tacked in and whatnot, then I can take it back off the car, cut out all the excess metal that I don't need, weld it completely in, set it back on the car, and then I can start making this rear panel. So I'll do it in a couple steps, but it's pretty cool. Body sitting on the chassis, and we have a transmission inside it, literally inside it. So now we need to work on making it not inside the car. All right, guys, this is what I ended up with yesterday. Got a panel made for the top, kind of loosely. I've still got some pieces I need to trim off of it, make it look better and fit a little bit tighter. But I wanted to at least get it on and get the shape there. Ended up making it out of two panels. Now this panel's sitting
kind of messed up compared to what it's going to end up like. I couldn't quite get this to fit the way I wanted to, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait until I tack it in on this side and on this side, and then use the old persuasion hammer to get it to come back out to that height. So that's why it looks kind of funky right now in the video, but that was, I think, it's going to be the easier way to put that in. Yeah, as you can see, it's not lining up there. Got the gap, but I think it's going to be easier to tack this thing in. And then use a little bit of a dead blow hammer or something to get that curve back in it. So we'll leave it at that. I opened up this side of the panel, as you saw, and got it tacked in place, which was a lot easier because it was already here. I just had to bend it up. And I think this morning, that's what I'm going to do. Well, you know what? I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I'm either going to clean this up and weld it in completely, or I'm going to tack it in and test fit it one more time. So I don't know. Let's see. You will find out shortly. All right, feeling pretty good about that. I got the transmission tunnel welded in and tacked in some places, but mostly welded in all the way back to where I'm going to make my access panel. I know I talked about that already, but I wanted to get everything that's going to stay on the tunnel and not removable done. And then I wanted to put the car back on the chassis and make this next panel, not all of it, but a good majority of this next panel removable. And I think that'll be great for service later on. So we'll see how that goes. But I got it back on the car. I got the new body bushings in, so I put those on the car. I should have showed you those before I put the body back down on the chassis. But you will have plenty of opportunity to see it because I still have to get the car back off. This is not the final time that it's on there. But I think you can see, maybe you can see that one in there. A couple of them across the way there. The only weird thing is the kit that I ordered. It came with these two are oddballs. So it came with two different pairs of oddball. And as you can see, it's not quite touching. Everything else is touching, I just checked. But these two are slightly too low, and that's not to confuse them with the radiator support, because those are right there. So I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to call them and figure out, maybe I've got one misplaced, but they're all, the rest of them are all touching how they should be. So I'm not really sure Maybe I got sent one that's a little different, or maybe that rear section of frame is just slightly tweaked. I don't know. I'll have to look into that further. But back to the project at hand is this transmission tunnel. So I haven't painted it. I haven't done anything other than get it welded in. But as you saw in the time lapse, I ended up having to make basically the entire left side is all new. Now, anywhere that you see a gap, it's welded on the bottom side, and I left a little bit of overhang. Like right here, you can see a little bit of a gap, and that's because this is bouncy, so I can't get it to sit flush. So I will fix that later on. And on top of that, every single weld joint and every single panel will get another round of the seam sealer. So not only have I welded it for structure, but I'm also going to go back through and seam seal everything, so it should be completely airtight. But I ended up keeping this side, but splitting it up top, and I think I split it right here somewhere, and of course cut this off, and I opened this up. So this right here used to turn up and meet this. I ended up flattening it out, lifting the whole thing up, and that bridged the gap, so that was perfect. So welded this. This is about an inch, maybe inch and a half taller, kind of right here on the center, and kind of gradually comes back down to maybe 3/4 of an inch taller. So that was basically all you would have to have done to fit this transmission as far as this side goes. Now the other side, since this transmission is kind of asymmetrical, so it's wider on the driver's side of the car with the shift linkage and everything, it was impossible to keep. Well, maybe not impossible, nothing's impossible, but it was somewhat ridiculous to try to keep the original metal. So I ended up cutting here. I did a relief cut here, a relief cut here, and a relief cut here. So this is all factory floor pan. And of course, as you can see, I came through and bent it up straight so I could utilize that. And that gave me something good to measure off of. And then right here, this is leftover factory that I bent straight up vertical. So that gave me the distance I needed around the slave cylinder and that little solenoid on the side of the transmission. So I know this looks all boogered up and messy, but trust me, there's worse out there. It's all going to be seam sealed, so don't get too focused on that. I made this panel first, which if you look at the way it is actually the leftover piece from this floor pan. Remember, if you look back a few videos ago, this was a full replacement floor pan, so it went all the way up to here, but it wasn't quite high enough, so I ended up ordering lower firewall supports and used those instead and cut the excess off the original floor pan, or after my aftermarket floor pan. I was left with this piece, and it kind of had the shape that I needed, so I went ahead and used that. Ended up doing a lot of work right here in this corner, a lot of work across the top. This is basically the factory shape. I just opened it up a little bit, and then this, of course, came straight out. I put a bend on it to match up with these. This piece I made separately just because it needed to be curved, really. Straight piece wasn't going to cut it. If I'd have used a straight piece, I know it's hard to tell on camera, but if I'd have used a straight piece, I would have been too shallow and hit the slave cylinder, or if I'd have came out far enough to miss the slave cylinder with a straight piece, this whole piece would have been about an inch further out, which I didn't need that room, and it would have gotten in the way of my throttle pedal. So it's actually, I know it's hard to tell. I don't know what that noise was, but I know it's hard to tell, but this is actually curved like this all the way up, and then curves in again this way to match up here. So that was kind of a more complex piece to make, and then this little piece here was just because, of course, I bent this more than I bent this, so there was a gap. So that's what I ended up with, and I'll get up underneath the car and show you. I know it doesn't look beautiful right now, but trust me, once I paint it, put the seam sealer on it, I think it's going to turn out pretty darn good looking. So on top, I'm going to make an access panel, so we'll be doing that next. But before I get to that, I'd like to show you underneath the car because I am happy with how that came out. I basically, let me get the flashlight. I basically set this thing on the car like you saw, made the cuts, and then kind of roughed in a little bit what I needed with the Clecos, and then took my best judgment and guessed about how much room I needed for that slave cylinder and the solenoid. So let's go underneath the car here. And I was pretty happy with how all of this turned out. So this is, hopefully I can get this on camera. This is the driver's side. It looks close, but it's got enough room. And the passenger side, got a lot of room. If I ever needed to access the transmission bolts, I've got plenty of access, and the bell housing bolts, also plenty of access. So let's go up here. This is that little solenoid and the slave cylinder. And man, I don't know, it probably won't come through on camera, and it looks all boogered up because that's the original slave cylinder, so it's rusted. I'm gonna replace that. And I don't have paint on any of the metal, so it doesn't look perfect, but if you can just imagine it looking uniform as far as paint goes, this is just a little wire. It ended up with almost the perfect amount of room coming around the way I had to bend it. And I even have room for my little, I don't know what it is, it's electrical connection up there. I can't remember what it's for. I don't think it's the speed sensor. I think the speed sensor is back here. But anyways, I had to clearance it for that electrical connector up there. I had to clearance it for the slave cylinder, for the clutch, and then this little solenoid thing. So just really happy with how it came out. I know it won't come across on camera like that. It probably looks terrible, but give me some time. I'll make it look better, and then I'll show you some of the after pictures. But now I need to figure out how I'm going to make this access panel. So let's use some brain power on that one and see if I can make that turn out as well. just a little bit closer. Got this all welded together. Transmission's tunnel is starting to actually look like a transmission tunnel now. And of course, since I used nice new fresh metal, this looks a lot better than this does, but this has already been treated. It'll be painted. It'll look the same. So I got a little bit of finishing up on the welding. I know it doesn't look beautiful right now, but once I put seam sealer and paint the whole thing, trust me, I think it's going to come out looking just fine. I'm really happy with how this back section turned out. Ended up trying to cut it back a little bit and round this corner off so that I have the least amount of work to do some seat modification. I already know I'm going to have to do a lot of issues or run into a lot of issues with the seat, because kind of how I'm holding the camera right now is the line that the two seat bolts are on, and typically the seat cushions, it's a little bit further up, so I'm already going to run into a bunch of issues there. So the most I can minimize it, I was trying to. So yeah, I think I've left myself enough room where my rubber boot from the factory setup will actually come in and cover this entire section. And if I got to put a little bit of sealing strips or something on here to get a nice gap there and seal, I'll do that. But happy with how that turned out. Got my access hole over here on this side. If you can see it, comes straight down over top of those bolt holes, or those bolts, so I can get a socket down in there. So instead of making this whole panel removable, which was kind of turning into a little bit of a pain, even though I'm sure it's possible, I thought, you know what, let me just make this stationary, and then I can just make me a real small patch panel here. Not a patch panel, but a cover. Have it overlap, and then either screw it on or put some, I don't know, weld some nuts on the backside maybe, and put a couple bolts on. So we'll figure that out. But I got to lift the car back up to do a little bit of welding on this bottom side, and then get this caved piece to come back out a little bit to flatten this off a little. But that's how it's looking right now. It's turning in pretty darn good. I'm happy with it. It's not professional, but I like it. So, and I think it'll work. I sat in here, and I've got these holes so I can kind of tell where the throttle pedal is going to be. And it looks like the throttle pedal is going to be about right there. So I think I've got enough room as far as my leg goes. It's not going to stick out real far. And then I think my heel will still be able to fit down in there nicely. And I'll still have the ability to use that throttle pedal. So I'm liking how it's going to turn out. It looks like one more step's almost complete. So now let's lift the body off the chassis once again and do a little work on the bottom side, and then really I think it's just clean it up and start the seam sealing and painting. So let's get started. Well, folks, that is the last little bit. Of course, it's not on the car because I just painted it, but that's the little access cover that I made for it. Wanted to show you guys what I ended up with. That is the whole transmission tunnel made. Fabricated it up, painted it, got it looking good in my opinion. The paint's still a little wet, so it'll look a little bit different than the rest of the car. But I told you it wouldn't look too bad once it was all black. It's doing what it's supposed to do, just disappear. Got everything seam sealed. These bolts I just have in here so I didn't get any paint down in the threads, but that's where that last little piece I just painted goes. That's my little access panel for the transmission bolts. But got the top side all finished. Got the bottom side all finished. Everything is seam sealed. It's welded, but it's seam sealed on top of every single thing just in case there's anything missed. Have a nice airtight seal. And yep. That's it. That is the transmission tunnel build. It went better than I thought. Let me know what you think below. I put the, I got a little spacer in here holding the gas pedal, but I put the gas pedal in just to make sure everything was good. Looks like I got plenty of room on the gas pedal. So, yeah, I think that turned out pretty good. I'm happy with it. For something that's not meant to be in the car, I think it should look somewhat factory once it's all together. Now, I wanted to have it back on the chassis and then, you know, put like the shift boot and everything on it to show you guys, but in the idea of being efficient, I'm going to go ahead and start on the next video, which is putting the entire fuel tank, hopefully the fuel system, and then maybe even the wiring harness for the engine in. But in order to do that, I need the car up in the air to put the fuel tank on, and I really don't want to move that chassis back over just to take the picture. So hopefully by the time I'm editing this video, I'll have a picture of it all completed, and I'll put the pictures here at the end. But you get the idea. The transmission tunnel is finished. I'm moving on to the next step. Like I said, next step, fuel system. I got the tank over there. I'll show you guys in the next video. Got a bunch of more goodies. Just finished ordering all of the fuel lines, so they should be here later this week. So a real exciting video next week as well, Sunday at 5 o'clock. Thanks for joining me for this video. Hope you're enjoying the progress on the Chevelle. At times I feel like I'm moving too slow, and then at times I feel like I'm making up a lot of ground. So hopefully I can continue this momentum. Hopefully you're enjoying the videos. If you're subscribed, I appreciate it like always. If you're not subscribed, consider it. And I'll catch you all next Sunday at 5 o'clock. See ya.